As of today, right now, while we're shooting the videos, I don't have an official name for this blanket yet. The working name has been lacy blanket or four-corner blanket. That doesn't make any sense because every blanket has four corners. So the name might be different than lacy blanket when you actually see it in print, but this is what it looks like. Let me open it up a little bit more. When I designed this, I had an idea of what I wanted the blanket to look like, and then from there, I wanted the construction of it to be the way that I most like to knit. And one of my favorite things to do is to knit around and around and around and around. I think it makes really good TV knitting, relaxing knitting, and not really concentrated knitting where you have to think a lot about what you're doing. So that's how I decided to put this together. The techniques that I'm going to show you in the tutorial for this blanket are widely used across a lot of different things, where you start out with a few stitches on double pointed needles and then gradually get bigger and bigger. But if you'd like to follow along with this specific pattern, you can find it for purchase and download over at VeryPink.com. Let's get started with the most difficult part of the whole pattern, which is the cast on and the first few rows. Okay. This pattern is written, let me find the end of my yarn. This pattern is written in such a way that we are going to use 4 double pointed needles, like this, and use the 5th one to knit with. So you need a set of 5 for this, which is normally how double pointed needles come. If you're working on something else with double pointed needles, like a sock or a sleeve, you normally just want to use 3. 3 is easier to work with. It still makes a circle for you. 4 tends to get kind of floppy, but the reason we're doing this is because the pattern is written in fourths, if that makes sense. It'll make more sense here in a little bit. So this is the fussiest and most fiddly part of the whole pattern, and that's what we're going to cover right now. I'm going to cast on 8 stitches over 4 needles, meaning 2 stitches each, and I can do this in a couple of ways. I've just cast on 2 there. I can cast them on each individual needle like this, or I can cast all 8 onto one needle. I'm going to put 4 on here. And then transfer the stitches as if to purl onto the 3 empty needles. I prefer to cast them all on. Okay, so here's your first mess. Look at that. How do we make sense of this? The first thing you do is you find your working yarn, and mine is right here. And then I want to arrange the needles in such a way that they're lined up without twisting. And if you do end up with a half twist in something, it's not a disaster, but we do our best to make sure things aren't twisted. So what I've done is my working yarn is here, the stitches arc around like this, and this is the last stitch. Working yarn, last stitch. And the gap is right here. Does that make sense? There we go. That's a better way to show it. Goes around like this. With my working yarn over here on the right side, this is going to be the first stitch that I knit. And when I use this working yarn to knit this stitch, it's going to close up the circle. See? A lot of patterns start this way, and a lot of people struggle with 4 needles like this, with very few stitches cast on. It is the hardest way to get started, but it's worth it because it ends up being such fun knitting. Now let me see here. Okay, my first round is just going to be plain knitting. And like I said, I'm going to knit this stitch first. And when I do this, because it's going to be hard to tell where the beginning of my round is, I actually want to count 8 stitches and make sure that I've finished all the way around, because I'll come back to my tail here, but just trust me, it'll be hard to see. So I'm going to count 8 while I do it so I know I've finished one round. I'm going to get my first stitch ready to go there, get my needle into it. Not letting the needles flop around and get twisted. I'm actually holding on to things pretty well here. Wrap it and pull it through. There's 1, 2. I'm going to go to the next needle which is to the left. Three, 4. The next one is to the left. I'm just going to keep turning it clockwise, a quarter turn to get to my next needle. 5, 6, one more quarter turn. 7 and 8. Okay, now I have finished the first round. And I'm going to want to keep a row counter so I know which round that I'm on. Round 2 is going to be a little bit easier to keep track of because I'm going to do some increases here. This looks like such a mess, but I really do have control over what's happening. Round 2 is knit 1, yarn over, knit 1 on each needle. So the pattern is written just for one needle, but you're going to repeat it 4 times around, or 3 more times around. So knit 1, yarn over, knit 1. That was the first needle. And now I have 3 stitches on that one. Knit 1, yarn over, knit 1. Second needle's finished. Sounds like wind chimes. Knit 1, yarn over, knit 1. And my last needle, I know this is my last needle because it's the last needle with only 2 stitches on it. Okay, I've completed the second round. Let's take a look. It's probably not much to see yet. You take a look, it's starting to take shape. A couple more rounds and this will actually really make sense. And I won't have to keep such close track of where I am because, drum roll, once I've done a few more rounds, I'll be able to put one of these clippy markers in like this to mark the beginning of my round. You can't really use a ring marker because it just falls off the end, but one of these little clippy markers will mark the beginning of my round, and I will know that between these 2 needles right here is the beginning of my round. Okay, and like I said, this probably 2 more rounds, I'll be able to use the clippy marker. And as you work and it gets bigger and bigger, you'll want to keep moving the clippy marker out closer to the current row or the edge of the work. Okay, you might need to watch this more than once to actually get it because people do struggle with this and it does take some practice. But after the first few rows, it starts to get really easy. In the next video, we're going to talk about switching to circular needles.